The plasma burns across Commander Jake Holloway's chest screamed with every breath, but he didn't slow down. Two small aliens clutched his tactical vest as he sprinted through the collapsing mining station, the crystalline bodies trembling against his ribs. Behind him, something with too many legs shrieked through the smoke. "Hold on tight," Jake gasped, vaulting over a sparking conduit. The twins whimpered in a language he couldn't understand, but fear needed no translation. He'd found them huddled in a storage bay 3 levels down, surrounded by the torn remains of their escort detail. The things that did it were still feeding when he arrived. That was 47 kills ago. His rifle clicked empty. Jake threw it aside without breaking stride, drawing his sidearm as he burst through a bulkhead door. The corridor beyond writhed with movement. Scratcher swarms, each one the size of a dog, their razor limbs designed to flay organic matter from bone. They turned as one, compound eyes gleaming. Jake fired twice, dropped 2, then holstered the pistol and pulled the thermal charge from his belt. He primed it, threw it high, and dove through a maintenance hatch. The explosion turned the corridor into a blast furnace. Heat washed over him, singing his exposed skin, but the screaming stopped. The twins chirped something that might have been gratitude. Jake checked them for injuries, his hands surprisingly gentle despite their trembling. No visible damage. Good. Their mother's distress signal had reached the human fleet 6 hours ago. A desperate plea from a diplomatic shuttle caught in a station overrun by creatures from the planet below. Death World L, the surveys called it. A hellscape where evolution had weaponized everything. The extraction team wouldn't arrive for another 2 hours. Jake had come alone on a fast interceptor because he'd heard children in the background of that transmission. Human protocol said wait for backup. Human instinct said something different. He kicked open a service panel and pulled himself up into the ventilation system. The twins pressed against his chest. His HUD flickered, struggling to maintain contact with his ship's tactical net. Station integrity was at 14% and falling. The creatures were everywhere now, drawn by vibration, heat, any sign of prey. Jake's shoulder clipped a vent edge. Fresh blood joined the old. He'd lost count of his wounds somewhere around the 100th kill, when a ripper had opened his thigh to the bone before he'd crushed its skull against a wall. Field stimulants kept him moving, but chemistry had limits. The twins' grip tightened. One of them pointed ahead with a delicate, 4-fingered hand. Through the vent grating, Jake saw the docking bay. His ship waited there, 50 meters of open space away. Between him and survival, something massive moved in the shadows. Its breathing sounded like grinding metal. Jake's remaining thermal charges wouldn't stop something that size. He checked his combat knife, still sharp. Then he looked down at the twins, their enormous eyes reflecting his battered face. "When I move," he whispered, "you run for that ship. Understood?" They chirped in unison. He chose to believe that meant yes. Jake kicked out the vent grating and dropped into hell. Jake hit the deck plating hard, rolling to absorb impact. The twins tumbled free but landed light as feathers, their crystalline bodies naturally shock-absorbent. Good. They'd need that advantage. The massive thing in the shadows moved. Jake's eyes adjusted, and his stomach dropped. A Titan Maw, designation Apex, 7 from the planetary surveys. 12 meters of armored muscle, mandibles that could shear through starship hull plating, and a territorial rage that made them hunt anything that moved. The surveys had called them unkillable. The surveys were written by people who'd never been desperate. Jake grabbed a piece of broken scaffolding, his muscles screaming protest. He hurled it across the bay. The metal clattered against the far wall. The Titan Maw's head snapped toward the sound, its sensor stalks extending. In that half-second of distraction, Jake shoved the twins forward. "Run," he hissed. Their small legs blurred with speed, heading straight for the ship's open airlock. The Titan Maw detected the movement and pivoted, faster than something that size had any right to be. Its roar shook loose debris from the ceiling. Jake sprinted perpendicular, drawing the creature's attention. It worked. The Maw charged him instead, building speed, its clawed feet punching craters in the deck. Jake dove behind a cargo container just as the creature crashed through where he'd been standing. Metal shrieked. The impact set him sprawling. He came up firing his sidearm. aiming for the eye clusters. 2 shots connected. The maw bellowed and thrashed, momentarily blinded. Jake used the seconds to check the twins' progress. Halfway to the ship, not fast enough. More movement in his peripheral vision. 3 Razorbacks emerged from a collapsed corridor, their spined hides bristling. They'd been drawn by the noise. Their attention locked onto the running twins. Jake's decision took no time at all. He yanked his last thermal charge free, armed it, and threw it at the Razorbacks. The explosion caught 2 of them, but the third dodged with predatory grace. It accelerated toward the twins, covering ground in powerful leaps. Jake ran, his leg wound reopened, hot blood soaking his pants. The stimulants in his system redlined his heart. He covered 10 meters in seconds that felt like years. The Razorback was faster. It launched itself at the smaller twin, jaws wide. Jake intercepted it midair, his combat knife already swinging. The blade punched through the creature's throat as they collided. They hit the ground together, Jake on bottom, 200 kilos of dying alien on top. Its death throes drove spines through his shoulder, his side, his arm. He felt ribs crack, but the twins kept running. The Titan Maw had recovered. It charged again, this time at Jake, who was pinned under the Razorback's corpse. He saw his death coming in the form of descending mandibles, each one the size of his torso. Then plasma fire stitched across the Maw's flank. The creature stumbled, roaring. Jake twisted his head and saw her. A female alien, the same species as the twins but adult-sized, stood at his ship's airlock. She held his backup plasma rifle, the one from his ship's emergency locker, and she fired with methodical precision. The twins had reached her. They were safe. The alien woman's shots drove the Titan Maw back, forcing it to seek cover. She advanced, still firing, providing suppression. Jake heaved the Razorback corpse aside, agony lancing through every nerve. He staggered to his feet, retrieving his knife from the dead creature's throat. "Move, human," the woman called in accented but clear English. Her voice carried the unmistakable authority of someone used to command. Jake moved. Each step was negotiation with his failing body. The woman maintained covering fire, her movements trained and efficient. Not just a diplomat then, former military, maybe current. The twins huddled behind her legs, watching Jake with those enormous eyes. A screech from above. Jake looked up to see a Ripper dropping from the ceiling supports, diving straight at the woman. She was focused on the Titan Maw, completely exposed. Jake threw his knife. Years of combat drills made the motion automatic. The blade tumbled end over end and buried itself in the Ripper's skull. The creature crashed at the woman's feet, twitching. She glanced at it, then at Jake, her expression unreadable. Then she fired 3 more shots at the Titan Maw and grabbed both twins. "Inside, now," she commanded. They ran together for the airlock. The Titan Maw charged again, ignoring its wounds, driven by pure killing instinct. Behind it, more shapes emerged from the station's dying corridors. The entire hive was converging. Jake reached the airlock first, turned, and caught one twin as the woman passed the child to him. She handed over the second, then fired the plasma rifle one-handed while backing up the ramp. Jake secured the twins in crash seats, his hands shaking from blood loss and stimulant overload. The woman slapped the airlock controls. The door began to close. The Titan Maw covered the last 20 meters in seconds, mandibles reaching. The door sealed with a magnetic clang. Something massive hit the outer hull. The whole ship shuddered. Jake stumbled to the pilot's seat, his vision tunneling. The woman took the co-pilot position without asking, her fingers already dancing across the launch sequence controls. "You know how to fly?" Jake managed. "I know how to not die," she replied. The engines roared to life. The ship tore free from the docking clamps just as the station's fusion core went critical. The shockwave caught them, sending the ship spinning. Jake fought the controls, his wounded shoulder barely responding. The woman's hands joined his, steadying the flight stick. Together, they pulled the ship out of the spin and into open space. Behind them, Station 7 became a brief new sun, taking the hive with it. Jake slumped in his seat, finally letting his body acknowledge its damage. The woman was already opening emergency medical supplies, her movements quick and practiced. The twins chirped anxiously from their seats. "You came alone," the woman said. Not quite a question. "Heard kids," Jake replied through gritted teeth as she applied sealant to his worst wounds. She paused, her alien features softening in a way he recognized. Gratitude, relief, something deeper. "I am Commander Lyra Venish of the Crystalline Concordat," she said. "You saved my children. That is a debt my people do not forget." Jake tried to shrug and failed. "Just doing what needed doing." Lyra met his eyes. "You killed 300 of Deathworld L's most lethal organisms. Alone. For strangers. For kids," Jake corrected. Something fierce entered her expression. "My mate died protecting our diplomatic mission. I thought I had lost everything when those creatures overran our escort." She gestured at his wounds, his blood-soaked uniform, the knife still embedded in the dead Ripper outside. "But humans like you don't calculate survival odds. You simply refuse to let children die." The twins chirped again. Lyra turned to them, speaking in her native language. They responded eagerly, pointing at Jake. "They say," Lyra translated, "that you told them to hold on tight, that you kept them safe even when bleeding, that you are the bravest person they have ever seen." Jake's vision was fading, blood loss finally winning despite the stimulants. "Just tell them they were worth it." Lyra's hand gripped his shoulder, the touch gentle but grounding. "Stay conscious, Jake Holloway. The extraction fleet is 2 hours out. You will survive this." Her voice hardened to a certainty. "And when you do, the Crystalline Concordant will ensure you are rewarded appropriately. We honor those who protect our young." Jake wanted to say rewards didn't matter, but darkness was pulling him down. His last conscious thought was of 2 small crystalline children, alive because he'd simply refused to let them die. Very human. Very HFY. Jake woke to unfamiliar sounds. Not the steady beep of human medical equipment, but soft harmonic chimes that shifted in response to his breathing. He tried to sit up and immediately regretted it. Pain radiated from everywhere. "Do not move," Lyra's voice, calm but firm. Her hand pressed against his chest, easing him back down. "You have been unconscious for 6 days. Your injuries were extensive." Jake's eyes focused. He was in a medical bay, but not a human one. The walls shimmered with patterns that seemed alive, responding to movement. Crystalline structures grew from the ceiling like inverted trees, each one pulsing with soft bioluminescence. Through a viewport, he saw stars he didn't recognize. "Where am I?" "The Concordat flagship Eternal Dawn," Lyra said. She looked different now. Her crystalline features had taken on warmer tones, and she wore formal robes instead of the blood-stained clothes he remembered. "Your extraction fleet arrived and stabilized you, but our medical technology is better suited for the kind of damage you sustained. They agreed to transfer you into our care." Jake processed that. Human Concordat relations were cordial but distant. For the fleet to hand over a wounded officer meant serious diplomatic weight. The twins? Lyra's expression softened. "Tira and Sen are well. They ask about you constantly." She paused. "They drew pictures of you fighting the monsters. Very dramatic, somewhat anatomically inaccurate, but the sentiment is clear. Despite everything," Jake smiled. Then the tactical part of his brain kicked in. "Station 7? Completely destroyed. The hive is gone." Lyra pulled up a holographic display. "Concordat analysis estimates you personally eliminated 317 hostile organisms during your extraction run. The data from your combat recorder is being studied by military strategists across 5 species. No one has ever survived that level of sustained combat against Deathworld L fauna. Lucky, I guess?" "Luck," Lyra said dryly, "does not explain precision knife throws while suffering from massive trauma, or tactical decisions that prioritize civilian safety over personal survival in every instance." She leaned forward. "The Concordat does not believe in luck, Commander Holloway. We believe in courage, sacrifice, and honor. You demonstrated all 3. The medical bay door opened. 2 small figures rushed in, their crystalline bodies reflecting the room's light in rainbow patterns. Kira and Sen stopped at the edge of Jake's bed, suddenly shy. Jake tried to look less like a mummy wrapped in regenerative bandages. "Hey, kids," they chirped excitedly, their language musical and rapid. Lyra translated with obvious amusement. "Kira says you are the greatest warrior in the galaxy. Sen wants to know if all humans are this scary when protecting others. Tell them most humans are scarier," Jake said. "I'm just stubborn." Lyra translated. The twins chittered, with what sounded like laughter. Kira carefully climbed onto the bed, moving with the caution of someone afraid to cause pain. She placed a small crystalline object in Jake's hand. It was warm and pulsed with inner light. "A gratitude stone," Lyra explained. "In our culture, children give them to those who save their lives. It will stay lit as long as the giver lives. You now hold 2 pieces of my children's hearts, Commander." Jake looked at the stone, then at Kira's hopeful face. His throat tightened. "Thank you," he managed. Sen added his own stone, placing it beside his sister's gift. 2 lights pulsed in Jake's palm, synchronized to what he realized were the twins' heartbeats. The door opened again. This time, a tall, crystalline figure entered, wearing robes that marked him as high-ranking. His features were sharp, authoritative, and his eyes assessed Jake with military precision. "Admiral Corvex," Lyra said, standing immediately. "I did not expect you personally. The human who saved the Concordat ambassador's children deserves personal attention," Corvex replied. His English was flawless. He approached Jake's bed. "Commander Holloway, your actions have created a political situation." Jake's hand instinctively moved toward where his sidearm should be. Lyra noticed and placed her hand over his. "Not a bad situation," she said quietly. Corvex's expression might have been amusement. "The Concordat Council has been in session for 3 days, debating appropriate compensation for your service. Ambassador Vinesh holds significant influence, and she has made her position extremely clear. You saved her children. By our law, that creates a bond that cannot be dismissed with simple medals or money." "I don't need compensation," Jake said. "They're kids. It's what anyone would do." "But they did not," Corvex countered. "Your own extraction fleet was still assembling when you launched. Their tactical assessment concluded the station was lost, the survivors already dead. You ignored assessment, protocol, and common sense. You went anyway." He gestured at the twins. "This is why you now hold gratitude stones. This is why the Council has decided on an unprecedented reward." Jake didn't like where this was going. "Sir, I really don't need." "The Concordat is offering you citizenship," Corvex interrupted. "Full legal status, including access to our medical technology, educational institutions, and economic systems. Additionally, you are being granted a warden commission." Jake blinked. "A what?" Lyra's eyes widened. "Admiral, that is extraordinary. Wardens are our most elite protection specialists," Corvex finished. "They guard council members, protect civilian populations during crises, and operate independently across Concordat space. It is a position of immense trust." He focused on Jake. "We want you to continue doing what you do best, Commander. Saving those who cannot save themselves. With Concordat resources behind you." "I'm already a human officer," Jake protested. "I can't just abandon my commission. We have discussed this with your superiors," Corvex said. "They are surprisingly amenable. Apparently your service record includes 17 reprimands for ignoring orders to rescue civilians. Your commanders respect your skills but find you politically difficult." A definite smile now. "The Concordat values exactly that quality." Jake looked at Lyra. She met his gaze steadily. "This is real," she confirmed. "The Council wants you. My people want you. And, personally," she glanced at her children, "I would rest easier knowing someone like you protects others the way you protected mine." Kira and Sen chirped hopefully, their gratitude stones pulsing brighter in Jake's hand. "There is one other matter," Corvex added. "Ambassador Vinesh has requested you as her personal security detail. Given recent events, the Council agreed she requires someone with your specific talents." "You're assigning me as a bodyguard?" Jake asked. "I am offering you a position protecting the Concordat's chief diplomat and her children," Corvex corrected, "along with warden authority to intervene in any crisis situation you encounter. You would have access to our best ships, weapons, and intelligence networks, all in service of doing what you already do naturally. Jake's mind raced. Leave humanity's military? Join an alien government? Protect Lyra and the twins permanently? Every tactical instinct said this was insane, but he looked at Kira and Sen, remembered their weight against his chest as he ran through hell, remembered deciding their lives mattered more than his own. That hadn't been tactics. That had been something deeper. If I accept, Jake said slowly. I do things my way. No bureaucratic delays when lives are at stake. That is precisely why we want you, Corvex replied. Wardens operate on conscience, not committee. Lyra leaned closer. You saved my children when no one else would even try. That matters, Jake. It matters to me, to them, to everyone who learns what you did. Let us give you the tools to save more. Jake looked at the gratitude stones in his hand, feeling their warmth, their rhythmic pulse. 2 lives that continued because he'd refused to calculate odds. All right, he said. I'm in. The twins erupted in excited chirping. Lyra's relief was visible, her posture relaxing for the first time since entering. Even Corvex showed approval. Then, welcome to the Concordat, Warden Holloway, the Admiral said. Your first assignment begins when you can walk again. What assignment? Corvex's smile turned predatory. Diplomatic protection detail. Ambassador Vinesh is scheduled to negotiate a treaty with the Vorthan Empire next month. Intelligence suggests they may not want those negotiations to succeed. Jake grinned despite his wounds. Sounds like trouble. Precisely, Lyra said. And now my children have the galaxy's most stubborn human ensuring that trouble doesn't reach them. Kira carefully hugged Jake's arm, mindful of his injuries. Sen did the same on the other side. Their gratitude stones pulsed in perfect synchronization. Jake Holloway had come to Station 7 to save 2 children. He was leaving with a new life, a new purpose, and a family he'd earned in blood. Very human. Very HFY. 3 weeks later, Jake stood in the Concordat training facility, watching holographic projections of Vorthan attack patterns. His wounds had healed faster than any human medical technology could manage, leaving only thin scars as reminders. Concordat regenerative medicine was nothing short of miraculous. Again, instructed Warden Kilos, his crystalline form shifting through combat stances. The veteran warden had been assigned to bring Jake up to speed on Concordat tactical protocols. The Vorthans favor coordinated strikes. They will send multiple threats simultaneously to overwhelm defenses. Jake moved through the simulation, his new Concordat-issued combat suit responding to thought as much as motion. Energy barriers deflected simulated attacks, while his upgraded weaponry tracked multiple targets. The technology was incredible, but it felt wrong, too clean, too easy. Stop, Jake said, powering down. This isn't how fights actually happen. Kalos tilted his head. Explain. Your simulations assume enemies follow tactical doctrine, Jake said. Station 7 didn't work that way. Those creatures didn't coordinate. They swarmed, adapted, exploited every opening. Real combat is messier. The Vorthans are not mindless beasts. No, but they're still living things making split-second decisions under pressure, Jake countered. Show me scenarios where everything goes wrong, where equipment fails, where enemies do unexpected things, where I have to improvise. Kalos studied him for a long moment. Then he manipulated the holographic controls. The training chamber's atmosphere changed. Very well. Scenario designation. Total Chaos Protocol. Reserved for advanced wardens only. The simulation exploded into violence. Vorthan assassins materialized from every angle, some using weapons Jake had never seen. His energy barrier flickered and died immediately. Environmental hazards activated. Civilians appeared in crossfire zones, screaming in panic. Jake moved, not with the practiced elegance Concordat warriors displayed, but with brutal human efficiency. He used a malfunctioning barrier emitter as an improvised club, grabbed a simulated civilian and rolled behind cover while firing one-handed, redirected an enemy's attack into another attacker. When his primary weapon jammed, he transitioned to his backup without hesitation. The simulation lasted 43 seconds. Jake stood among simulated carnage, breathing hard, every civilian protected, every threat neutralized. Kalos deactivated the scenario. His expression held something like respect. You passed an evaluation that defeats most wardens on their 5th attempt. First try. I've had practice with everything going wrong, Jake said. The training chamber door opened. Lyra entered, wearing formal diplomatic attire that somehow made her look both elegant and dangerous. Behind her, Kira and Sen bounced excitedly. Warden Holloway, Lyra said with formal politeness that didn't match the warmth in her eyes. The children insisted on watching your training. Watching me get beat up by holograms? Jake asked. Lyra translated with amusement. He says you fight like their drawings predicted. Lots of improvisation and what he calls creative violence. Kira added her own commentary, gesturing enthusiastically. Lyra's translation came more slowly this time. She says you move differently than Concordat warriors. Less beautiful, more practical. She finds it fascinating. Kids are honest critics, Jake said, kneeling to their level despite Kalos's disapproving look. Wardens apparently didn't kneel. Jake didn't care. You two staying out of trouble? Both twins produced data tablets showing him drawings they'd made. Crude but enthusiastic depictions of Jake fighting various monsters, always with them safely behind him. In every picture, they'd drawn his gratitude stones glowing in his pocket. Jake felt that throat tightness again. These are great. Very accurate. Though I think you made my muscles bigger than they actually are. Kira chirped and flexed her small arms. Lyra laughed. The sound genuinely delighted. She says human muscles need to be big to compensate for lacking crystalline structural reinforcement. Smart kid, Jake acknowledged. They are excited about the Vorthan mission, Lyra said, her tone shifting to something more serious. They believe you will keep everyone safe, as you did before. Jake stood, meeting her eyes. That's the plan. The Vorthans are not Station 7 creatures, Lyra warned. They are intelligent, ruthless, and politically motivated. Intelligence suggests they want to eliminate me before negotiations begin. Killing a Concordat ambassador would destabilize our alliance structure and benefit their territorial ambitions. Then they'll have to go through me first. That is precisely what concerns me, Lyra said quietly. You have proven willing to sacrifice yourself for others. But Jake, my children have already lost one parent. I would prefer they not lose their protector as well. The weight of that statement hung between them. Kalos diplomatically focused on his holographic displays, pretending not to listen. I didn't survive Station 7 by being suicidal, Jake said. I survived by being more stubborn than everything trying to kill me. That hasn't changed. But the stakes have, Lyra countered. At Station 7 you had nothing to lose. Now you have citizenship, position, and 2 children who have decided you are their personal hero. That creates different pressures. Jake wanted to argue, but recognized the truth in her words. The twins watching him with absolute faith. Lyra's concern masked his professional worry. The Concordat investing resources in his success. He wasn't alone anymore. And that changed calculations. I'll be careful, he said, but I won't hesitate when it matters. I would not want you any other way, Lyra replied. Just remember that staying alive is also part of protecting us. Kalos cleared his throat. Ambassador, the strategic briefing begins in 20 minutes. The Admiral wishes to review Vorthan threat assessment with both you and Warden Holloway. Lyra nodded. She turned to her children, speaking in their language. They responded with obvious reluctance but obediently headed for the door. Before leaving, both turned and chirped at Jake. They say be ready for tomorrow's transport, Lyra translated. They have prepared supplies for the mission. Supplies? They have been drawing more pictures, Lyra said with a smile. They believe visual documentation of your previous victories will intimidate potential threats. Jake couldn't help laughing. Psychological warfare through crayon drawings. I like it. The twins left with a Concordat guardian. Lyra lingered, her expression turning contemplative. Jake, there is something you should know before the briefing. What? The Concordat Council chose you as my warden for specific reasons beyond Station 7, she said carefully. Our intelligence networks have been monitoring human military activities. Your reputation extends beyond one rescue. 17 documented instances of ignoring direct orders to save civilians. 43 confirmed rescues under hostile conditions. Multiple commendations paired with equal reprimands for insubordination. My record wasn't exactly secret. No, but the pattern was significant, Lyra continued. The Council wanted someone who values individual lives over abstract strategy. Someone whose first instinct is protection, not politics. You are exactly that person. Sounds like they picked someone predictable. They picked someone trustworthy, Lyra corrected. In a galaxy where political expedience often trumps moral action, you are refreshingly inflexible on matters of life and death. That quality is rare and valuable. Jake processed that. So I'm being used as a political statement. The Concordat's noble human warden who saves everyone. You are being positioned as proof that moral action still matters, Lyra said. Is that so different from what you have always done? Before Jake could answer, his communicator chimed. Admiral Korvax's voice cut through. Warden Holloway, Ambassador Vanesh, report to Strategic Command immediately. We have new intelligence on the Vorthan situation. It is not favorable. Lyra and Jake exchanged glances. They moved together toward command, falling into step naturally. Kalos followed at a respectful distance. Define, not favorable, Jake said into the communicator. The Vorthans have hired external assets, Korvax replied. Professional killers with experience targeting Concordat officials. Intelligence identifies at least 12 operatives, possibly more. They will strike during the diplomatic transit, when you are most vulnerable. Jake's mind shifted into combat mode, calculating scenarios and responses. Ship specifications, diplomatic cruiser Crystal Harmony, modified for your assignment with enhanced defensive systems. But Warden, these are not Station 7 creatures. These are trained assassins who have studied Concordat security protocols. They will exploit every weakness. Then it's good I don't follow Concordat protocols, Jake said. He could almost hear Korvax's smile through the communicator. Precisely why we hired you. Briefing in 5 minutes. Prepare for an interesting conversation. The communication ended. Lyra looked at Jake with an expression mixing concern and confidence. Are you ready for this? Jake thought of 2 small children who believed he could protect them from anything. He thought of gratitude stones pulsing with their heartbeats. He thought of a diplomatic mission that would put them directly in danger. I was ready the moment I said yes, he replied. Now let's find out what we're really up against. They entered Strategic Command together, a human warden and a Concordat ambassador, walking into a threat neither fully understood yet. But Jake had learned something important at Station 7. Sometimes the best response to overwhelming odds wasn't careful planning. Sometimes it was simply refusing to lose. The briefing room was filled with holographic displays showing the diplomatic route to Vorthan space. Admiral Korvax stood at the center, manipulating data streams with practiced efficiency. Around him, senior Concordat military officers watched with expressions Jake was learning to read as concern. The situation has deteriorated, Korvax began without preamble. Our intelligence has identified the lead assassin. Designation, Varric the Pale. Former Concordat Special Forces, dishonorably discharged for war crimes, currently commands a mercenary unit specializing in high-value eliminations. A hologram materialized, showing a lean, scarred figure with cold eyes. Jake studied the image, cataloging details. The way Varric held himself suggested extensive combat training. The scars weren't random. They were trophies. This wasn't someone who killed for ideology. This was someone who enjoyed the work. Varric has successfully eliminated 4 Concordat officials over the past decade, Korvax continued. Each time he exploited diplomatic immunity and neutral space regulations to escape prosecution. The Vorthans use him precisely because he understands our systems and knows how to circumvent them. How does he operate? Jake asked. Korvex brought up tactical analysis. Varric favors misdirection. He creates multiple threat vectors simultaneously, forcing security to divide attention. While defenders respond to obvious dangers, his actual strike team moves through gaps in coverage. By the time security realizes the deception, targets are already dead. Classic shell game tactics, Jake observed. Keep everyone looking at the wrong thing. Precisely, Korvex agreed. Standard Concordat security protocol assigns defenders to specific zones and threat types. Varric has studied these patterns extensively. He knows exactly how we will respond. Then we don't respond that way, Jake said simply. Every officer in the room turned to look at him. Lyra's expression showed interest rather than concern. She was learning to trust his tactical instincts. Explain, Korvex commanded. Jake gestured at the holographic route display. Your protocols assume linear security. Zones, checkpoints, predictable defensive positions. Varric beats that by being unpredictable. So we flip the script. Instead of defending specific areas, I stay mobile and unpredictable. Instead of reacting to his moves, I force him to react to mine. You propose abandoning established defensive doctrine? One officer protested. I propose making me the variable Varric can't plan for, Jake countered. He knows Concordat security. He doesn't know me. And he definitely doesn't know how humans fight when protecting something that matters. Korvex considered this. You would essentially operate as a free agent, moving through the ship according to your own assessment, rather than assigned positions? Exactly. Give me full access, no restricted zones, complete tactical freedom. I'll stay close enough to the ambassador and her children to respond instantly, but unpredictable enough that Varric can't anticipate where I'll be. That violates every security standard we have established, another officer argued. Those standards have gotten 4 officials killed, Jake shot back. Maybe it's time to try something different. Silence fell across the briefing room. Then Lyra spoke. I support Warden Holloway's approach. Traditional security failed my diplomatic escort at Station 7. His unorthodox methods succeeded. I trust his judgment. Korvex studied Jake for a long moment. You understand what you are proposing. You would be solely responsible for Ambassador Vinesh and her children's safety during a 5-day transit through neutral space. No backup protocols, no standardized responses. Just you, your instincts, and whatever chaos Varric brings. Sounds like Tuesday, Jake said. That got surprised reactions from several officers. Kellos, standing at the room's edge, made a sound that might have been approval. Very well, Korvex decided. Warden Holloway will operate with full tactical autonomy. All ship security will be briefed to defer to his authority during threat situations. He fixed Jake with a hard stare. But understand this, human. If your methods fail, if the ambassador or her children are harmed, the consequences will be severe. If my methods fail, I'll be dead, Jake replied. So consequences won't matter much to me. But they will matter to human Concordat relations, Korvex countered. You carry more than personal responsibility now. You represent proof that our alliance can work, that humans and Concordat can trust each other with what matters most. Your success or failure will influence diplomatic policy for generations. Jake felt the weight of that statement but refused to let it show. Then I better not fail. Korvex nodded slowly. Departures in 18 hours. Use that time to prepare. Study the ship layout. Identify potential breach points. Plan your response scenarios. And Warden, Varric has never failed a contract. Do not underestimate him. I won't, Jake promised. But he's about to learn something important about humans. What is that? We're really stubborn about protecting kids. The briefing concluded. Officers filed out, some shooting Jake doubtful glances, others showing cautious optimism. Lyra remained, waiting until they were alone except for Kellos, who maintained his discreet distance. You made quite an impression, Lyra said. Half the command staff thinks you are either brilliant or insane. Can't I be both? She smiled at that, but it faded quickly. Jake, what you said about dying if you fail, please do not treat that as an acceptable outcome. Sir, I'm not planning to die, Jake assured her. But I'm also not going to calculate survival odds when choosing how to protect you and the twins. That's just who I am." "I know," Lyra said softly. "That is exactly why I trust you, but it is also why I worry." She stepped closer. "My children have attached themselves to you. They speak about you constantly. They dream about being brave like you. If something happens to you, it will devastate them." "Then I'll make sure nothing happens," Jake said. "Not to me, and definitely not to them." Lyra's hand touched his arm, the gesture carrying weight beyond simple contact. "At Station 7, you were a stranger risking everything for children you had never met. Now you are family. That makes this different." Jake met her eyes, seeing the depth of concern there. "Different how?" "Then you had nothing to lose. Now you have people who need you to survive." Her grip tightened slightly. "Promise me you will be as careful protecting yourself as you are protecting us." "I promise to do whatever it takes to get all of us through this alive," Jake said. "That's the best I can offer." Lyra studied his face, searching for something. Whatever she found seemed to satisfy her. "Then I will hold you to that promise, Warden Holloway." She left, her departure somehow making the briefing room feel larger and emptier. Kelos approached, his expression thoughtful. "You handle pressure well," the veteran warden observed. "But the ambassador is correct. This is different than Station 7. How so?" "There, you fought creatures. Dangerous, but ultimately predictable in their aggression. Varric is different, he thinks. Adapts and exploits psychological weaknesses. He will study you, identify what you care about, and use that against you." Jake considered that. "So he'll threaten the twins to make me predictable." "Most likely. Standard tactic when facing dedicated protectors. Create a crisis involving the protected targets. Force the Guardian into a reactive position, then strike from an unexpected angle while they are committed elsewhere. Then I need to make sure he never gets a chance to create that crisis," Jake said, "which means going on offense." Kalos tilted his head. "Wardens typically maintain defensive postures during protection details." "I'm not typical," Jake replied, "and I learned something at Station 7. Sometimes the best defense is making the enemy too busy staying alive to attack what you're protecting." "You would hunt Varric during the transit?" "If the opportunity presents itself," Jake confirmed. "He's expecting me to wait for his move. What if I don't give him that luxury?" Kalos was quiet for a moment. Then he produced a small device, offering it to Jake. "Emergency beacon? If you trigger this, every Concordat vessel within range will converge on your position. Use it if the situation becomes truly desperate." Jake took the beacon, understanding the gesture's significance. Wardens operated independently, trusting their own skills. Offering backup options was admitting the mission's danger exceeded normal parameters. "Thank you," Jake said sincerely. "Do not thank me yet," Kalos replied. "Survive the transit. Protect the ambassador and her children. Then I will accept gratitude." He paused at the door. "And Warden, the twins asked me to give you something." He produced 2 small objects. Drawings, carefully sealed in protective cases. One showed Jake standing between the twins and a shadowy figure labeled Bad Guy. The other depicted all of them arriving safely at the Vorthan negotiations, with the twins holding victory signs. "They made these last night," Kalos explained. "They said you should carry them for luck." Jake looked at the crude but heartfelt artwork. 2 children who believed absolutely in his ability to protect them, who had turned their trauma at Station 7 into faith in his competence. He carefully stored the drawings in his combat suit's secure pocket, right next to the gratitude stones that still pulsed with the twins' heartbeats. "Tell them I'll keep these safe," Jake said, "along with everything else that matters." Kalos nodded and departed, leaving Jake alone with holographic displays showing the route to Vorthan space. 5 days, 12 confirmed assassins, possibly more. One target who refused to let fear dictate tactics. Jake began studying the ship schematics, identifying access points, defensive positions, potential ambush sites. His mind cataloged variables, calculated responses, planned contingencies. Somewhere out there, Varric was doing the same thing, planning how to kill Lyra and her children, confident in his skills and experience. But Varric had never faced someone like Jake. Someone who had walked through hell for strangers and would do infinitely worse for family. The transit was going to be interesting. Jake smiled grimly and continued his preparations. 18 hours until departure. 18 hours until Varric learned why humans had a reputation for being dangerously protective. The Crystal Harmony departed Concordat space exactly on schedule. Jake stood in the ship's observation deck, watching stars streak past as they entered faster-than-light transit. Behind him, Kira and Sen pressed their faces against the viewport, chattering excitedly about the light patterns. They have never experienced diplomatic travel before, Lyra explained, standing beside Jake. To them, this is an adventure. Let's keep it that way, Jake said quietly. His eyes constantly scanned the deck, cataloging crew positions, exit points, potential threats. The ship carried minimal staff for a diplomatic vessel. 30 crew members, 10 Concordat security personnel, and 1 very alert human warden. The first day passed without incident. Jake maintained constant motion throughout the ship, never following predictable patterns. He checked the engine room at random intervals, inspected cargo holds without warning, appeared in crew quarters when least expected. The Concordat security team initially resented his intrusions but quickly recognized his methodology. Unpredictability was its own form of defense. Kira and Sen adapted to his presence with the easy acceptance of children. They followed him during his rounds when Lyra's duties allowed, turning security patrols into games. Jake indulged them, recognizing that maintaining their normalcy was part of keeping them safe. Fear would make them vulnerable. Confidence would keep them alert. On the second day, Jake found the first anomaly. A maintenance access panel in the lower cargo section showed signs of tampering. Nothing obvious, just minor scoring around the lock mechanism that shouldn't exist on a freshly serviced diplomatic vessel. He immediately triggered ship-wide security protocols. Concordat guards swept every compartment while Jake personally escorted Lyra and the twins to the reinforced safe room near the bridge. The twins treated it like an exciting drill. Lyra knew better. You found something, she said once they were secured. Maybe, Jake admitted. Could be nothing. Could be Varric's advance team planting entry points. Either way, I'm not taking chances. The security suite found nothing else suspicious. No explosives, no hidden operatives, no obvious threats, but Jake's instinct screamed warning. The tampered panel wasn't random. It was a message. Varric, announcing his presence, demonstrating he could reach anywhere on the ship. Jake doubled his patrols, sleeping in 3-hour shifts, maintaining hypervigilance that would exhaust most people. His Concordat medical enhancements helped, but even they had limits. By day 3, Lyra noticed, "You need rest," she insisted during a brief moment when the twins were occupied with educational programs. "Exhaustion makes you vulnerable. Being unconscious makes me more vulnerable," Jake countered, checking his weapon's charge level for the 15th time that hour. "Jake," Lyra's voice carried command authority. "I have seen soldiers destroy themselves through unsustainable operational tempo. You are approaching that threshold. 4 hours of uninterrupted sleep. That is not a request." Jake wanted to argue but recognized the logic. He was operating on stimulants and stubbornness, neither of which lasted forever. "Fine, but only if you and the twins stay in the safe room with full security lockdown, and I keep my communicator active." "Acceptable," Lyra agreed. Jake managed 3 hours of restless sleep in the safe room's auxiliary chamber before his combat instincts jolted him awake. Something felt wrong. The ship's ambient vibration had changed, almost imperceptibly. He was armed and moving before conscious thought caught up. The corridor outside was empty, too empty. Normal crew traffic should have at least 2 people visible from this position. Jake's tactical display showed all security personnel at their assigned stations, but something in their positioning bothered him. They were exactly where protocols said they should be, which meant Varric had studied those protocols and positioned his own people in the gaps. Jake triggered his emergency beacon, sending a silent alert to Kalos and Admiral Korvax, then moved toward the bridge. He took maintenance routes instead of main corridors, his Concordat combat suit stealth systems engaged. The ship's monitoring system would show him in the safe room. Anyone tracking him through standard security feeds would think he was still sleeping. He reached the bridge level through a service shaft and immediately knew his instincts were correct. 2 crew members stood outside the bridge entrance, their postures too rigid, their placement too precise. Jake recognized professional positioning when he saw it. These weren't nervous diplomats. These were trained killers. He dropped from the shaft silently, his weapon already tracking targets. Don't move. Both figures spun with inhuman speed. Not concorded physiology. Something else. Augmented humans, their eyes reflecting light with the telltale shimmer of combat enhancements. Varric's team had infiltrated the crew. Jake fired twice. Energy pulses caught the first operative in the chest, dropping him instantly. The second dove, behind a support column, returning fire with professional precision. Plasma bolts scorched the bulkhead where Jake had been standing. He was already moving, using his knowledge of the ship's layout to flank. The operative anticipated this, throwing something small and metallic. Jake recognized a stun grenade and dropped flat as it detonated. The blast wave washed over him, his suit's systems absorbing most of the impact. Through blurred vision, Jake saw the operative charging, a vibro blade extended for a killing strike. Jake rolled, grabbed the operative's wrist mid-swing and redirected the blade into the wall. Metal screamed. Jake's other hand drove his combat knife into the gap between the operative's armor plates. The man collapsed. Alarms shrieked throughout the ship. The bridge entrance exploded outward in a controlled breach. 3 more operatives emerged, dragging a Concordat officer who'd been guarding the command center. They dropped him contemptuously and raised weapons toward Jake. "Warden Holloway," a calm voice called from within the bridge. "I have heard impressive things about you. Station 7 was quite the performance." Varric emerged, his appearance matching the intelligence hologram perfectly. Lean, scarred, eyes like frozen void. He held a weapon casually, pointed at nothing and everything simultaneously. "Let me guess," Jake said, remaining in cover. "You threaten the ambassador, I surrender, everyone dies anyway?" "Nothing so crude," Varric replied. "I am here to offer you a choice. The Vorthans want Ambassador Vanesh dead. They are paying me substantially to ensure this happens. However, they said nothing about her children." Jake's blood went cold. "What are you proposing?" "You stand down. Allow me to complete my contract and I permit the twins to live," Varric said. "They will be returned to Concordat space unharmed, with a tragic story about how their mother died despite your best efforts. You even get to survive, though with a somewhat damaged reputation. And if I refuse?" Varric's smile was arctic. "Then I kill everyone aboard this ship, starting with 2 small children who believe you are invincible. I will make sure you watch, Warden. I will make sure you understand that your stubbornness cost them everything." The 3 operatives fanned out, creating overlapping fields of fire. Professional spacing, veteran tactics. Jake calculated odds. 4 trained killers with superior position against 1 defender in partial cover. Every tactical analysis said this was unwinnable. Jake had stopped trusting tactical analysis at Station 7. "Counteroffer," Jake said. "You and your team leave now, and I don't kill all of you." Varric actually laughed. "Admirable bravado, but ultimately pointless. I have studied you, Warden Holloway. You are brave, skilled, and remarkably durable, but you are also human, limited, mortal. And most importantly, you care too much. That caring makes you predictable." "You think so?" "I know so," Varric replied. "Right now you are calculating how to protect the ambassador and her children. That calculation locks you into defensive thinking. You cannot attack without leaving them vulnerable. You cannot retreat without abandoning your duty. You are trapped by your own protective instincts." "Funny thing about instincts," Jake said. "Sometimes they're smarter than logic." He triggered the emergency beacon a second time, a coded signal he'd arranged with Kelos. Then, he threw a smoke grenade and charged directly at Varric's position. The move violated every tactical doctrine. Charging superior numbers with 0 backup was suicide, which was exactly why Varric didn't expect it. Jake's combat suit's enhanced strength let him cover the distance before the operatives could adjust their aim. He hit the nearest one like a battering ram, using the man's body as a shield against the other's fire. Plasma bolts struck the operative instead of Jake. The man screamed and went limp. Jake discarded the body and rolled, his weapon tracking the second operative. He fired 3 times. The operative's shields absorbed 2 shots, but the third punched through, dropping him. Varric fired. Jake felt the impact against his shoulder, his suit's armor deflecting most of the damage, but not all. Pain lanced through him, but he kept moving, closing distance with the third operative. This one was faster, better trained. They exchanged blows in a flurry of augmented combat, neither giving ground. The operative's vibroblades scored Jake's ribs. Jake's combat knife found the operative's throat. They separated, both bleeding. The operative collapsed first. Jake spun toward Varric, weapon raised. The assassin stood calmly, his own weapon pointed directly at Jake's head. They faced each other across 3 meters of blood-stained deck. Impressive, Varric acknowledged. You eliminated my team faster than projections indicated. But now we reach the inevitable conclusion. You are wounded, out of position, and I have a clear shot. Do you truly believe you can draw faster than I can pull this trigger? No, Jake admitted. Blood ran down his side from the rib wound. But I don't need to be faster. Varric's expression flickered with confusion, then comprehension as he heard the sound behind him. The safe room door had opened. Lyra stood there, holding Jake's backup plasma rifle, the one he'd left with her for exactly this scenario. Her aim was steady, professional, and pointed directly at Varric's back. I was Concordat Special Forces before I became a diplomat, Lyra said coldly. Drop your weapon or I will demonstrate exactly what that training entailed. Varric's eyes moved between Jake and Lyra, calculating new odds. Then he smiled. Clever. Using yourself as bait while positioning the actual threat. Very human. Drop it, Jake repeated. Varric's weapon lowered slightly. Then he moved, impossibly fast, spinning toward Lyra while firing. Jake was already moving, throwing himself between Lyra and Varric's shot. The plasma bolt struck his chest armor, the impact hurling him backward. Lyra fired. Her shot caught Varric in the shoulder, spinning him around. He stumbled but didn't fall, his augmented physiology keeping him functional despite the wound. You should have taken my offer, Varric snarled, raising his weapon again. Jake fired from the ground, his shot hitting Varric's weapon hand. The assassin's gun clattered away. Before Varric could recover, Jake was on him, driving him into the bulkhead with enhanced strength. They grappled, both wounded, both fighting with the desperate intensity of professionals who knew this was the final exchange. Varric was skilled, augmented, experienced, but Jake had something Varric didn't. Absolute refusal to lose. Jake's headbutt shattered Varric's nose. His knee strike fractured ribs. When Varric tried to gouge his eyes, Jake bit the assassin's thumb hard enough to draw blood. Nothing elegant. Nothing clean, just brutal human determination. Varric finally went down, unconscious but alive. Jake stood over him, breathing hard, bleeding from multiple wounds. Behind him, Kira and Sen emerged from the safe room, their eyes wide. They'd witnessed everything. Jake tried to smile reassuringly, but probably looked terrifying covered in blood. Hey kids, still safe, like I promised. Both twins ran to him, their small arms wrapping around his legs. Their gratitude stones pulsed frantically in his pocket, responding to their elevated heartbeats. Lyra approached more carefully, the rifle still ready. That was insane, she said quietly. Using yourself as bait, gambling that I could make the shot. Wasn't a gamble, Jake replied. I trusted you. Her expression softened, then hardened again as she looked at Varric. He will face Concordat justice for this. Good, Jake said. But first, let's secure the ship and make sure there aren't more surprises. Concordat security finally arrived, alerted by Jake's beacon. They found a scene of carnage. 4 dead operatives, 1 unconscious legendary assassin, and a human warden still standing despite injuries that should have incapacitated him. The twins refused to let go of Jake until medical personnel physically separated them to treat his wounds. Even then they stayed close, their small hands touching his arm as Concordat medics worked. 3 days remained until they reached Vorthen space. Jake